A roaring sound, not the wind, not the rain, the deafening scream of a jet engine ripping apart. Imagine being 17 years old, sitting in a window seat, holding your mother's hand. Suddenly, a blinding flash of white light strikes the wing. The cabin splits open. The screams of 91 passengers vanish instantly into the cold, thin air. You are no longer inside an airplane. You are strapped to a row of 3 seats, falling through the sky, 3,000 meters above the dense, green canopy of the Amazon rainforest. Clouds blur past your eyes. The air rushes so violently you cannot breathe. The world spins out of control. And then, total silence, blackness. On Christmas Day, 1971, a young girl named Julianne Koepke fell from the heavens. She should have died before she ever hit the ground. But against every law of physics and nature, she opened her eyes. She was alive, alone, and trapped in the most dangerous jungle on Earth. This is the incredible true story of an 11-day crawl for survival that shocked the world. Julianne Koepke was born into a world of science. Her father was a famous zoologist. Her mother was a brilliant ornithologist. They lived and worked in Peru, studying the deep secrets of the rainforest. Julianne spent her childhood learning about the wilderness. She knew which plants were poisonous. She knew how to track animals. She knew the sounds of the jungle. But she never imagined this knowledge would decide whether she lived or died. It was December 24th, 1971. Christmas Eve. Julianne and her mother, Maria, boarded Lanza Flight 508 in Lima. They were flying to Pucallpa to visit Julianne's father for the holidays. The flight was supposed to take less than an hour. The passengers were happy, talking about Christmas gifts and family dinners. But the Peruvian skies are unpredictable. About 20 minutes into the flight, the airplane entered a massive wall of black storm clouds. The turbulence became violent. Luggage flew out of the overhead bins. People began to scream and pray. Julianne looked out the window. The sky was pitch black, illuminated only by constant flashes of lightning. The plane was shaking so hard, the wings looked like they would snap. Then a blinding bolt of lightning hit the right wing. The fuel tank exploded. Julianne's mother turned to her and said her final words, "Now it's all over." A second later, the airplane broke into pieces. The change was instantaneous. The noise of the burning cabin disappeared. Julianne found herself outside, free-falling through the air. The 3-seat bench she was strapped to acted like a helicopter rotor, slowing her descent. She spun through the cold clouds, the wind whipping her face. The extreme altitude and lack of oxygen caused her to lose consciousness. She didn't feel the impact. She didn't hear the trees breaking. The next morning, the sun began to rise over the Peruvian jungle. Julianne woke up. She was lying on the wet, muddy ground beneath her passenger seat. Her body was broken. Her collarbone was fractured. She had a deep, open gash on her right arm. One of her eyes was swollen completely shut from the pressure of the fall. She had lost her glasses, and because of her severe nearsightedness, the world around her was a blurry, terrifying green maze. She called out for her mother. "Mommy?" No answer. Just the loud, mocking cries of exotic birds and the heavy hum of billions of insects. She was completely alone. Panic is a luxury Julianne could not afford. Her parents had taught her well. The jungle is dangerous, but it has rules. If you follow the rules, you might survive. She searched the immediate area around the crash site. She found a small bag of candy. That was all. No tools, no weapons, no heavy clothes. She was wearing only a short, sleeveless paper dress. One of her sandals was gone. She looked for other survivors. She called out again and again, but the silence of the forest was absolute. Julianne realized a terrifying truth. The search planes would never see her through the dense, thick canopy of trees. If she stayed at the crash site, she would die of hunger or infections. She had to move. She remembered a vital piece of advice from her father. If you are lost in the jungle, find water. A trickle leads to a stream leads to a river, and rivers lead to people. She listened carefully. Through the heavy noise of the insects, she heard it. A soft, dripping sound, a tiny stream of water. Julian dragged her broken body toward the water. Her 11-day journey into the unknown had just begun. The tiny stream grew wider. Step by step, it turned into a muddy, slow-moving river. Julianne followed it. Sometimes she walked along the slippery bank. Sometimes, because of her broken collarbone, she just floated on her back in the water, letting the current carry her downstream. It was easier than walking, but it was incredibly dangerous. The river was alive. Massive black caimans, South American crocodiles, slid off the muddy banks into the water near her. Julianne didn't panic. She knew from her parents that caimans rarely attack humans. She floated right past them. The real torment was much smaller. Insects, millions of them. Swarms of mosquitoes and stingless bees covered her face, arms, and legs. Because her dress was sleeveless and short, her skin was completely unprotected. Every inch of her body was covered in painful, burning bites. She couldn't sleep at night. She lay on the muddy ground, shivering from the cold tropical rain, listening to the terrifying roars of jaguars in the dark. Her candy was gone by the 4th day. She had no food left. She was drinking muddy river water just to fill her stomach. Starvation was slowing her down. But the worst was yet to come. By the 7th day, the jungle began to consume Julianne's body. The deep gash on her right arm became infected. In the humid heat of the Amazon, a horrific thing happened. A parasitic botfly laid eggs inside her open wound. Soon, dozens of maggots hatched beneath her skin. They began to eat her flesh alive. The pain was agonizing. It felt like burning needles moving deep inside her arm. Julianne knew that if the infection reached her bone or bloodstream, she would die of sepsis within days. She became weak. She started having feverish hallucinations. She saw her mother walking ahead of her in the green blur, only to vanish when she got close. Her feet were bleeding. She had lost her remaining sandal, and every step on sharp roots was pure torture. She was near the end of her strength. She wanted to lie down in the mud and close her eyes forever. But every morning, a small, stubborn voice inside her head said, "Move. One more step. Find the people." On the 10th day, Julianne stumbled upon something that looked like a mirage. On the bank of a wider river, she saw a small, wooden boat. It was tied to a tree. She blinked, thinking it was another hallucination caused by the fever. She crawled up the muddy bank. Behind the boat, hidden in the thick trees, stood a small shack with a roof made of palm leaves. It was empty. No people. But to Julianne, it was a palace. She crawled inside and collapsed on the wooden floor. Then she noticed a small can of gasoline used for the boat's motor. She remembered a trick her father used when their dog got parasites in the jungle. She poured the toxic gasoline directly into the deep wound on her arm. The pain was blinding. She screamed as her skin burned. But the gasoline worked. Over 30 large maggots began to crawl out of her flesh. She pulled them out one by one. She was exhausted, covered in oil, blood, and mud. She lay down on the floor and fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. She didn't know if she would ever wake up. The next afternoon, 3 Peruvian lumbermen returned to their camp. They expected to find an empty shack. Instead, they found a 17-year-old girl, barely breathing, covered in scars and insect bites. They were terrified. They thought she was a water spirit from local legends. But Julian spoke to them in Spanish, telling them her name and about the plane crash. The men washed her wounds, gave her food, and took her down the river in their boat. On January 3, 1972, Julianne was finally reunited with her father in a hospital. She was the only survivor of Lanza Flight 508. All 91 other people on board, including her mother, perished in the jungle. Julianne Kopcha survived a 3,000-meter fall and an 11-day green hell, not because she fought the jungle, but because she knew its rules, respected its power, and took one small decision at a time. Her story became a legend of human endurance, showing the world that even when the sky falls, hope can find a way through the darkest canopy. Julian Kopke went on to become a biologist, just like her parents, studying the very jungle that spared her life. What would have been your biggest fear if you were in her place? Share your thoughts in the comments. Like and subscribe to Visual Tales for more incredible true documentaries. End.